wind that swept the red grass fields outside King's Landing carried the aftertaste of war. Iron, ash, and the faintest sweetness of trampled rose petals. Lyanna Stark felt it all in the hollow of her chest. The throbbing ache of days spent in half-light and silence while banners of the stag replaced those of the dragon. She stood at the crumbling balustrade of Maker's Holdfast, looking not upon the city, but beyond the southern gate where orange embers still smoldered in charred siege towers. In the yard below, Baratheon's soldiers laughed and gambled with the careless ease of men who believed victory permanent. Every metallic rattle sounded like a closing door. A raven's leathery flutter broke her reverie. It settled on the stone next to her, cocked its head, and stared with the brazen certainty of a creature that knew death was someone else's worry. Lyanna lifted her hand. The bird hopped nearer, then away, as though uncertain whether the living girl were safer than the ghosts that lingered in the castle's shadowed halls. Her fingers closed on empty air. She was unarmed. Robert had insisted, but the old familiar weight of her tourney sword haunted her wrist. She could still feel the tilt-yard of Harrenhal beneath her boots, Rhaegar's haunting song in the dusk, the crown of winter roses pressed into her lap. When she blinked, the yard below flickered. Baratheon soldiers dissolved into silver-haired princes. The laughter became harpstrings, and scent of ash turned to perfume. The vision passed, leaving only stone and sky. Behind her, footsteps. Heavy, confident, too deliberate for Ned. She did not turn until the smell of fresh polished steel filled the gallery. Lyanna. Robert's voice was deep, but edged with something brittle. A man pounding at a door he lacked the courage to open. It isn't safe up here. The city's a beast with 1,000 knives. She hunted for the witty retort that once leapt so readily to her tongue, but grief had blunted her. She settled for honesty. I prefer wind to whispers. Robert's mail creaked as he shifted closer. How strange, she thought, that the sight of him could still draw old warmth through layers of distrust. War and loss had changed them both, but he remained a storm in a man's skin. Broad, dark-haired, the curved antlers of his helm tucked beneath one arm. He would not wear the crown until the septs were cleansed, and the High Septon agreed to place it on his brow. Yet he bore himself like a king already, and that, more than any ribbon of gold, terrified her. With whispers, she said, I can be bound. Wind will not hold me. The corner of Robert's mouth twitched, unsure if he was permitted to smile. No one wishes to bind you. She laughed, short, sharp. You wish to wed me. Chains of gold are still chains. Banterma. A flush crept under his stubble. He dared reach for her hand, brushed her knuckles as lightly as falling snow. I loved you before crowns and corpses. I love you now. Is that truly a chain? It is when the choice is not mine. She withdrew, clasping her hands behind her back to hide their tremor. I have seen enough halls where women sit silent on gilded benches, holding children like shields. I will not be a token of victory. Robert exhaled, gaze drifting across the yard where sunlight glanced off helms. No token. Queen. Net or Styrine. Queen of what? She tasted the words, ash and sorrow. King's Landing reeks of burned children. Storms and starves. The north bleeds. You want me to rule these graves with you? To mend them, he urged. Together. She looked away lest he mistake pity for surrender. He meant his vows, she knew. But he did not understand the cost. He never had. Love, to Robert, was a forge of fire. Hot. Bright, all-consuming. Once lit, he believed it could melt every chain. Lyanna had seen fire fail. The raven fluttered to the parapet and croaked, as though urging haste. She spoke softly. If you would have me, you must grant me the right of judgment. Mine, not yours. He frowned. What judgment remains? The usurper sits the throne. Rhaegar lies beneath the trident. Not his. Mine. All. She turned fully, so the wind caught her unbound hair and flung it like a banner. I will not be bartered between brothers, lovers, or lords. I claim trial by 7, as the faith allows. My freedom will be won or lost by my own choosing. Robert's brow furrowed into familiar storm cloud ridges. Trial by combat? Against whom? Matter against you. The words left her lips with a steadiness that surprised even her. You called yourself my betrothed when you raised your banners. You fought this rebellion in my name. Let the gods decide if your claim is righteous. Shock flared in his eyes, then something darker, dread or fury, she could not tell. 7 champions each, he murmured. Do you intend to mock me, Lyanna? You have no knights here. Now or die. She thought of those who might stand for her. Arthur Dane buried at the foot of the Tower of Joy. Rhaegar who would never rise. Brandon charred in his chains, Rickard roasted beside him. The living were fewer. Benjen, though scarcely a man grown. Ned weary and torn between love and duty. Howland Reed a slight water dweller amid southern giants. Yet names stirred like embers in a hearth, long left to cool. Serpents, wolves and dreamers who owed loyalty not to thrones, but to promises. Knights or no, she said, the right is mine by law. Refuse and every septon from here to Sunspear will whisper that the new king fears the judgment of the 7. No. Robert ran a gauntleted thumb along his jaw. The gesture once meant he was weighing a jest. Now it looked like a man measuring the heft of his own crown. You gamble much, my lady. I gamble everything, she replied. As you did when you called your banners. A gust rattled the crenellations. Below, a stag banner snapped, its black rack of antlers seeming to claw at the sky. Robert placed his helm upon the stone and traced the antlers. If I accept, and gods help me, I think I must, then you know the cost. Should my 7 prevail, you are mine by law and faith. No more arguments, no more flights into night. And if mine prevail, she said, voice low, I leave, free, no pursuit, no crown, no shackles of gold or iron. His gaze lifted, blue and wounded. Leave for where? She smiled a winter smile. Where winter calls me. The raven croaked once, a rough echo of stark wolves howling on snow-heavy wind. Robert's shoulders slumped in surrender. So be it. At dawn 3 days hence, in the dragon pit, choose your champions. I shall. She turned away before her knees could betray her. 5 steps down the stair, Robert's voice halted her. Lyanna. She faced him. Will you choose Ned? She thought of her brother, of the gray in his eyes that had not been there before the war. He will choose himself, she answered. If his heart allows. Robert nodded, yet in his eyes she saw certainty that Ned would stand beside him instead. He misread loyalty for ownership. Many would. Ned Stark was not easy to find amid the labyrinth of half-ruined corridors. He avoided the Tower of the Hand where Jon Arryn oversaw the reordering of the realm, and instead haunted silent wings where crimson tapestries had been stripped for torch kindling. Lyanna discovered him in an abandoned solar that smelled of dust and camphor, hunched over a map of shattered kingdoms. He rose at once, as though she were a rider bearing grave tidings. Lines of exhaustion etched his face, yet his gray eyes warmed at her approach. Lya. The nickname carried childhood snow laughter and wolf's blood daring. It almost undid her resolve. I need your counsel, she said, closing the door against stray ears. Always. He gestured to a chair, one of the few still intact. She remained standing. I have claimed trial by 7 against Robert. Silence. A candle guttered in the draft, wax pooled like melted bone. Ned stared as if she had declared herself dragon spawn. Trial by 7, he echoed. That right has not been invoked in 100 years. Longer, she agreed. Yet the faith has not struck it from law. He raked a hand through hair grown too long for court. You intend to fight. I intend to win. She folded arms over her chest to shield the tremor in her ribs. Ned exhaled, the sound half growl, half sigh. Robert will not rescind your challenge. His pride forbids it. You leave me choosing between blood and blood. I ask no oath from you. She met his gaze. Only truth. If you believe Robert's cause just, stand for him. And if I believe you deserve freedom. His voice cracked on the word freedom, as though the concept itself were an open wound. Then stand for me, she finished. He bowed his head. Candlelight limned the new white streak above his temple. Earned during the sack of King's Landing when he pulled Elia Martell's babe from a soldier's blade. That scar told her enough. Duty warred with honor inside him, a conflict that had already cost him pieces of his soul. She stepped closer. I will choose 6 others. You need not decide now. Ned's hand closed over hers. You would trust me with your life, though I might refuse. I trust your heart above all courts. She squeezed his fingers. But do not let love sway you. Let right guide you. What is right? He whispered. I thought I knew before the trident ran red. She lifted his chin until gray eyes met blue. Find the answer, then bring your sword where it points. By nightfall, rumor had flown faster than ravens. In the Alechstein taverns of Flea Bottom, gamblers laid odds on the outcome. In the throne room, lords argued precedent while maesters scoured dust-lightened tomes for mention of the last trial by 7. Some insisted it was the Blackfire pretender demon who invoked it. Others swore Aerion Targaryen had challenged a sworn brother. The truth mattered less than the spectacle to come. Cersei Lannister watched it all from a balcony above the hall, golden hair unbound in the stifling heat. Her father's forces held the city walls. Her children's futures hung on Robert's favor. She murmured to Jaime, if Lyanna wins, the North will tear loose, and father will not ride south again. Jaime, leaning against the balustrade in Kingsguard white, studied the swirl of heraldry below. Robert will not lose. Even if he did, he would break oath rather than yield her. Perhaps, Cersei said. Yet the tremor in her goblet betrayed unease. She had heard whispers of Lyanna Stark's ferocity. Wolf's blood, they said. Run wild. Cersei wondered how that blood would look splashed across a dragon pit floor. In the damp of Black Cell corridors, Lord Stannis Baratheon paced like a hound deprived of quarry. His brother's counsel excluded him more each day, relegating him to counting burnt ships and feeding surviving garrison men. When the news reached him that Lyanna Stark had challenged Robert, he paused mid-stride, fists clenched. Folly, he muttered, yet the word did not settle. There was something wickedly admirable in the northern girl's defiance. It mirrored his own wounded sense of justice. Rules either mattered for all or none. A jailer approached, bowing. Shall I fetch quill and parchment, my lord? Stannis waved him off. This battle would not be fought on paper. He stalked toward the stair, mind already tallying who among Robert's host could be trusted to fight fairly. Without rules, chaos reigned, and in chaos the realm bled anew. Dawn of the second day saw gray clouds rolling from Blackwater Bay like a mourning shroud. Lyanna donned riding leathers rather than silk, supple, dark, unassuming save for a sky-blue scarf tied at her throat. She could hide neither lineage nor legend, but she could refuse pageantry. In the bailey, Benjen awaited, mail ill-fitting upon shoulders still broadening with youth. Sister. His grin tried for boyish mischief, but wilted beneath solemnity. Tell me you will let me stand for you. She cupped his cheek. Not this time, little wolf. Why? Hurt, flared. Because I need you whole when winter falls. The North will look to you if... She did not finish the sentence, but his eyes darkened with understanding. He followed her toward the stables. Who then? You have Ned, surely. I have not yet asked. She chose a gray palfrey, stroking its muzzle. Sir Willem Darry may ride. He fostered me at Dragonstone's hearth these past months. Sir Barristan would had Robert not named him Lord Commander already. She saddled the horse deftly. And then there is Howland. Benjen frowned. A Crannogman counts half a man in a melee of knights. Lyanna smiled. In the swamp, Howland can slay giants with a frond of rushes. Do not underestimate small things. Benjen kicked at loose straw. Robert will choose lords of the Stormlands, perhaps the Kingslayer himself. Perhaps, she echoed, but she suspected Jaime's vows to the Kingsguard would forbid taking sides. The thought comforted her. Fewer lions at Robert's flank. Let me at least carry your banner, Benjen pleaded. I carry no banner, she said, vaulting to the saddle. I ride as Lyanna of House Stark. No wolf behind me, no dragon ahead, only wind. He stepped back, throat working. May the old gods watch you, sister. The old and the new, she agreed, though she doubted any gods heeded mortal pleas. She rode out through the king's gate before sunrise, a solitary figure fading into mist, while inside the walls, the city buzzed like a hornet's nest kicked astir. She needed space to think, to breathe air unstained by charred silk. The kingswood's edge welcomed her with damp moss and rust-gold leaves. Birds sang as though war were rumor only. There, beneath a massive weirwood that stood far south of its kin, she dismounted and pressed her palm to bark white as bone, sappered veins winding like ancient script. The face carved in the trunk gazed upon her with ageless melancholy. She knelt, drawing a dagger she had smuggled beneath her boot, and cut her palm. Blood welled dark. I am no priest, she whispered to the weirwood. But hear me. If you will not grant me victory, grant me the strength to bear defeat. Her blood dripped upon roots tangled in fallen leaves. Wind chimes through boughs like distant wolf howls. For a moment she could swear the carved eyes blinked. When she rose, resolve settled around her shoulders heavier than any cloak. She rode hard for the river where Howland Reed camped with the Cranagman survivors who followed Ned south. Among stilted huts and iron-pot fires, she found him gutting fish. He looked small, reed-slim, eyes bright as duskwater. I know why you have come, he said before she spoke. Will you stand? She asked. He wiped the blade on moss, then bound the fish neatly. I owe you a life saved beneath the heronhall tree. I will pay. He sheathed the knife fashioned from dragon glass. But 7 you need, and we are 2. Willem Darry makes 3. And Ned? I do not know. Her voice cracked. Howland studied her with marsh-wise calm. If he stands elsewhere, do not fault him. The heart is a divided country. I know. She set her jaw. Help me find the rest. Howland nodded, rising. Southron lords will not cross Robert. But there are free riders, hedge knights, sellswords with debts of honor. Some remember Rickard Stark's generosity during the Great Winter. We will ride. Nepenthe. By noon, they had 3 names. Sir Michael Redfort, Knight of the Vale whose life Ned saved at Gulltown. Lady Brienne Tarth, yet unproven but renowned for strength. And Jorah Mormont, Bear Hair of Bear Island, hardened at the siege of Pike years before rebellion. Convincing each would take charm and coin, both of which Lyanna lacked. Charm, perhaps. Coin she might borrow from Darry's dwindling coffers. The afternoon faded as they journeyed back through city gates. Lyanna's thoughts tangled like bramble. Logistics of arms, armor, the faith's efficiency. She worried less for her own skill with blade, rusty though it was, than for her champion's cohesion. 7, like the gods they invoked, must form a perfect circle. One fracture, and all fell. In twilight she sought Darry in the tower of Maegor's library, where he nursed rheumy eyes over scrolls. He rose slowly, one knee creaking, and bowed though his station outranked hers. My lady. Sir Willem, she said, I invoke your sword. He smiled, a kind sadness. I knew the day would come when I must repay the debt your brother believes forgotten. I am the debtor, she corrected. You sheltered me, and now I will shield you. He pressed a hand to his chest. The lily of House Darry was stitched there, petals frayed. We shall need a septon to witness. The High Septon himself will not refuse, Lyanna said with more confidence than she felt. Robert dare not deny his presence. Darry's gaze drifted to dusty tomes. Trial by 7 is rare because it demands an odd symmetry, piety and blood, law and chaos. The spectacle can birth legends or curses. Legends already circle us like crows, she replied. Let us bind them to truth. He chuckled, raspy. Spoken like a Northborn maid of 15, yet you stand taller than queens I knew. He patted her shoulder. Rest, my lady. Tomorrow is the choosing. But sleep proved elusive. Lyanna paced her borrowed chamber while moonlight spilled across stone tiles. In the quiet she heard distant cries, babies, drunks, lovers, the dying. And beneath them all, the trident's roar. Water rushing, armor clashing, Rhaegar's silvered breastplate shattering under Robert's hammer. Each echo bloomed like a bruise on memory. She halted at the window where a single star, bright as frost, glimmered above Blackwater Bay. Fingers slid to the hollow at her throat, where once lay the crown of winter roses Rhaegar placed upon her brow. Had it been prophecy or parody? He called her Queen of Love and Beauty that day. Robert meant to make her literal queen. She wanted neither title. She wanted the north snows on her cheeks, the taste of cold air that smelled of pine and promise, not ash and ambition. She whispered to the star, "Let me be the daughter my mother imagined, not the prize men make of me." Behind her, the candle guttered out, plunging the room into hush. Morning bells tolled. Their bronze notes collided with the roar of 1,000 voices crowding streets toward the dragon pit. Vendors hawked roasted dog, fire pepper wine, wooden pendants carved with wolves or stags. Lyanna rode past, cloak hood drawn, Howland pacing her on a piebald pony. The dragon pit's collapsed dome loomed, ribs of blackened steel clawing at storm clouds like a fossilized worm. Within the arena, amphitheater tears teemed, small folk packed against nobles, sparrows rubbing shoulders with silk-clad courtiers. A makeshift dais of oak planks had been raised where once dragonlords addressed their beasts. At its center stood the High Septon, white beard billowing, hands folded. To his right, Robert in gilded breastplate chased with stag sigils. To his left, an empty space awaiting Lyanna. Cheers erupted as Robert lifted his hammer in salute. The bronze head caught dawnlight, blazing like freshly spilled blood. Lyanna dismounted beneath the archway, stone cool under her palm. She inhaled dust and memory and stepped forward. Silence fanned outward like ripples. She climbed the dais, Robert's gaze fixed on her. Storm and sorrow mingled. She returned it, wolf's blood steady. The High Septon raised a staff inlaid with 7 matched crystals. By decree of the faith and ancient law, the Lady Lyanna Stark of Winterfell does challenge Robert of House Baratheon to trial by 7. Champions shall meet upon this ground in 2 days, at the hour when sun crowns the god's sept. Do both parties accept? "Ay," Robert answered, voice thundering. Lyanna's reply rang clear. "Ay." The Septon dipped his chin. "Call forth your champions that the gods might witness their oath." Robert motioned. First strode Lord Renly, green cloak swirling, barely a man grown but eager. Beside him, the bull Sir Garland Tyrell, young yet famed for tourney dexterity. Lord Bryce Caron, broad-shouldered. Sir Richard Lonmouth, a knight once sworn to Rhaegar, but spared at the trident. Stannis emerged next, grim as stone. Sixth came Thoros of Myr, red priest with sword, aflame for spectacle. For the 7th Robert stepped forward himself, hammer across his shoulder. Lyanna listened to the murmurs, a curious mix of skill and showmanship. She stepped to the fore. "I call Sir Willem Darry of Summerhall." The old knight ascended amid polite applause. Lord Howland Reed of Greywater Watch. Gasps followed at the sight of his slight frame, but he bowed, eyes sharp. Sir Michael Redfort, heir of the Vale. A tall youth clad in scarlet and silver approached, nodding to Ned in the crowd. Lady Brienne Tarth. Some jeered at the presence of a woman. She ignored them, each stride earth-shaking. Lord Jorah Mormont of Bear Island. The bear advanced, blonde-bearded and wary. 6. She paused, scanning tears until her gaze locked on Ned, standing amidst lords of the north. "Eddard Stark," she called. The hush deepened. Ned's face drained of color. His eyes flicked to Robert, then back to her. She read agony there, but also a spark. He descended stone steps one by one. Armor clinked. Each heartbeat seemed eternity. When he reached the dais, he faced Lyanna, then turned toward Robert. Wolf and stag measured the space between. But Ned bent knee before Lyanna. "I am your sword," he said, voice carrying. A roar broke from the crowd. Cheers. Boos, wild speculation. Robert's jaw clenched. Anger reddened his cheeks, but he lifted his chin, accepting the betrayal like a spear through ribs. The High Septon spoke. Thus are champions chosen. Let none add nor withdraw, on pain of excommunication. May the crone grant wisdom, the warrior strength, and the stranger mercy to those who fall. 2 days hence the gods shall judge. A choir of acolytes began hymns. Bells tolled anew. Yet above the clamor, Lyanna heard Robert's whisper as he stepped close. "You force my hand." She met his wounded fury. "So do you force mine." He touched her forearm. Plea or warning, she could not tell. "Yield before dusk on the morrow, and I will spare your champions. And cage myself. Better a cage than a grave." She smiled, fierce. "You never knew the wolf, Robert, if you believe she fears either." He let her go then, turning away in anger too vast to name. Across the arena, Ned clasped her shoulder. No words were needed. Howland offered a nod. Brienne? A shy glance. Jorah's eyes gleamed like northern ice beneath spring melt. Sir Willem wiped sweat, though dawn air was cool. Michael Redford sketched an awkward salute. 7 now stood against 7, reflections of gods poised upon the fulcrum of law and chaos. The crowd had ebbed. Lords hustled to send ravens. Gamblers revised odds. Blacksmiths stoked forges through the night. War drums stilled, yet tension thrummed fiercer than any battlefield. That evening, Lyanna's champions gathered in a forgotten hall of the Red Keep. Candles cast shifting halos. Dust motes danced like spirits. Ned produced a flagon of Arbor Red. "1 cup each," he said, "to bind us." Brienne declined. "Wine dulls." Jorah shrugged. "It sharpens courage." Howland sipped water only. Sir Willem raised his goblet with unsteady hand. "To Sheolf and Stormlord, may honor prevail." They drank. Lyanna tasted oak and summer berries, undercut by iron. The flavor of coming blood. She studied every face. Willem's weathered kindness, Brienne's earnest fire, Howland's quiet cunning, Ned's bleak resolve, Michael's raw eagerness, Jorah's stoic gleam. Could these disparate souls stand as one wheel? She must make them so. She stood with back to hearth. Flames limned her silhouette, flickering across walls hung with cobwebs. "I will not command you," she said. "Each of you carries your own oaths. Some to houses, some to gods, some to conscience. Tomorrow you may lose title or life for my sake. I offer no reward save the hope that by doing this we chain tyranny before it rises anew." Jorah grunted. "Robert is no tyrant." "Not yet," she agreed. "But power wields men as much as men wield power. If he takes a wife without her consent, what will he seize next?" "Neatu." No one answered, but the quiet settled heavy and sure. Brienne knelt suddenly, drawing sword. "Lady Lyanna, I pledge to serve a just queen. I find none such on the throne, so I choose you." Emotion tightened Lyanna's throat. She laid a hand on the broad-bladed sword, feeling its cool truth. "Rise, Sir Knight. Your honor honors me." Ned cleared his throat. "We must plan. Robert's strength lies in brute force." He eyed Jorah. "The bears are match for Garland. Brienne for Karen. Howland's cunning counters Thoros' fire. Willem knows Lonmouth style from tourneys past. Michael is swift, set him against Renly." And you?" Brienne asked. Ned's gaze darkened. "Robert." "But..." Lyanna flinched. "No. He will kill you." "Then you truly doubt?" He smiled, sad. "He is my brother still in all but blood, but he is wrong. I will remind him." Her heart ached. "I should face him." "You face all." Ned's eyes shone. "You are the center. Our circle holds only if you stand unbroken." Sir Willem nodded. "The lady must endure to sight's end, else their victory claims righteousness." "Then I will endure," she vowed. Hours passed in strategy and sparring. Howland demonstrated swamp a-fighter footwork, urging nimble steps over brute strikes. Brienne tested Michael's parries, her sword ringing like chapel bells. Willem and Jorah drilled shield walls. Ned moved through positions of the water dance Sirio taught him at Winterfell's courtyard in youth. Lyanna practiced alone. She lacked recent field experience, yet memory guided her blade. She slashed, spun, thrust through phantoms. Sweat slicked her brow, wrists burned, breath rasped. Yet each stroke steadied nerves. She was alive and unbroken. More than Rhaegar, more than Brandon. At last Ned called halt. Rest, sleep or pray, whichever bolsters you. They dispersed. Lyanna lingered by dying embers until only Ned remained. He approached, hesitant. Father would be proud. She smiled wearily. Father would thrash me for recklessness. Ned laughed, but tears rimmed his lashes. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For reminding me that vows matter more than crowns. She laid her head against his shoulder, as she had in childhood after nightmares. Outside the tower, thunder rolled. Dawn of the third day bled crimson. Storm clouds piled like warships over Blackwater Bay. In the dragon pit, sand stirred where champions would stand. Tents ringed the arena. One stag brown, one wolf gray. The royal box glittered with Lannister gold. Tywin himself attended, flanked by Cersei and Jaime. Small folk climbed crumbling columns for better view. Lyanna knelt in her tense stillness, blade across her knees. She wore mail reworked overnight by Micken the smith. Lighter than standard chain, dyed a soft winter gray. A surcoat of midnight blue bore no sigil. Her hair was braided back tight. A horn blasted. Howland entered. It is time. She rose, inhaling once, twice, tasting copper in the air, storm-born electricity. Ned awaited outside, helm tucked under arm. He offered a thin smile. Together, they walked. As they emerged into the amphitheater, thunder cracked. Raindrops spattered, hissing upon hot sand. The crowd cheered, voices lost to storm. Lyanna took her place among 6 dear companions facing Robert's chosen. Across the pit, Robert stood colossal, antlered helm casting shadows devil-like. He raised his warhammer to the galleries. Thunder answered. Lyanna lifted her sword, nothing more. The High Septon stepped forward, crozier lifted. Let judgment commence. Rain intensified, washing sand into mud. Steam rose from the pit like breath of dragons long dead. 7 against 7 measured each other in staccato heartbeats. Robert shouted, voice carrying over tempest. Yield, Lyanna, and we end this. Fury sharpened her calm. She answered not with words, but by sliding her blade into guard. Champions advanced, feet sinking into sucking mire. Lightning forked, illuminating helms, mail, determination etched on faces, both young and weathered. The storm became drum and fanfare, heaven's own musicians. And then, steel rang. Rain hammered the dragon pit with the fury of a broken sky, each drop exploding against breastplate and blade until the world rang with 1,000 tiny bells. Mud churned beneath boot and hoof. Water coursed in thin rivers through gouges left by dragons long dead, collecting in hollows where scale prints once smoldered. Lyanna Stark tasted grit on her tongue, felt the cold slick of rainwater seeping beneath the collar of her mail, and tightened her grip on her sword until knuckles blanched. The clash had begun. Brienne Tarth was first to meet the enemy. She thundered forward like a charging destrier, her long blade carving a silver arc toward Lord Bryce Caron's shield. Caron braced, stag-brown cloak plastered to his mail, but Brienne's strike cracked oak and iron, driving him backward 3 steps into the sucking mire. Sparks flew, the crowd roared. Caron answered with a sweeping cut, aimed at her knee. Brienne pivoted, water spiraling from her cloak, and drove her pommel into his helm. The chime of steel on steel rang high and clear. To the left, Howland Reed moved with marshland cunning, feet barely breaking the mud surface. Thoros of Myr barreled toward him, sword aflame despite the rain. Each droplet hissed to steam where it touched the blade. Howland slipped sideways like smoke, Reed's slim silhouette illuminated in the orange flare. Thoros swung in a downward smear of wildfire light. Howland ducked and thrust a dirk of dragonglass toward the priest's unguarded side. Thoros barked a startled oath, pivoted, and the knife shaved sparks from his breastplate before glancing away. Rain sizzled on burning sword. Both men circled, Thoros a beacon in the gloom, Howland a shadow at its edge. Near the pit's center, Jorah Mormont met Sir Garland Tyrell. Their shields crashed together like colliding ships, splintering mud-slick earth beneath them. Jorah jabbed upward with his longsword, but Garland twisted, cloak of golden petals streaming behind, counter-slash slicing toward Jorah's neck. The bear ducked, rolled his shoulder, and heaved forward to grapple. Metals shrieked. They locked in brutal clinch, each man's breath a cloud in the chilled air. Lyanna herself advanced with deliberate calm, eyes fixed on Renly Baratheon. The young lord moved gracefully, mace testing the air in elegant feints, a stag fawn pretending no horns hid in velvet. Rain danced on the polished flanges of his weapon like starlight. Lyanna raised her sword in chivalric salute. Renly returned it with courtly flourish, but his smile slipped beneath her steady gaze. He lunged. Lyanna parried, wrist twisting, blade shivering with the force. She slipped aside, boots finding purchase where stone ridges jutted through mud, and answered with a cut across his pauldron. Steel screeched. Renly hissed, staggered, but recovered, sweeping low in a glittering arc meant to take her legs. She leapt back, droplets scattering, and felt the wind of the mace as it passed. At the far rim, Ser Willem Derry and Richard Lonmouth traded blows of old comradeship, twisted to necessity. Derry's age betrayed him only in the slight hitch of breath. His arm still carried the memory of 1,000 tournaments. Lonmouth pressed hard, blade flashing, eager to prove courage after serving Rhaegar, yet living to bend knee to Robert. Derry blocked, riposted, their swords clanging a rhythm older than crowns. And there in the heart of the maelstrom, Ned Stark confronted Robert Baratheon. They closed slowly, mud rising to their ankles, eyes locked through veils of rain. Robert hefted his warhammer, antlered helm dark beneath the deluge. Ned slid ice from its sheath, a great sword broader than any in the pit. Valyrian steel alive with ghost fire reflections. The weight of ancient northern justice seemed to bend the very air around it. "Brother," Robert called above thunder, voice thick with grief and anger. "Brother," Ned answered. No more words. Robert charged, hammer whistling downward. Ned met him in a spray of sparks, ice's edge turning the blow aside with a crack that shivered arm to shoulder. Robert drove forward again, each strike a drumbeat of fury. Ned gave ground in measured steps, letting the hammer's momentum expend itself in mud and rain. When a swing went wide, Ned pivoted, ice licking at Robert's cuirass, scoring a line of silver beneath the stag. Robert grunted, face contorting, pain, surprise, betrayal. Their duel drew a rough circle, champions weaving context. Brienne and Caron slashing near, stormlight glinting off Reed's wet hair as he ducked Thoros' flaming blade. Mormont and Tyrell grappling like titans, Derry and Lonmouth dancing a knight's lament. Lyanna and Renly exchanging precise strikes, each pairing a spoke of a wheel whose hub was Ned and Robert, hammer and sword, love and defiance. Lyanna caught Renly's mace on her guard, slid inside his reach, and slammed the crossguard into his jaw. Bone cracked. Renly reeled, blood mingling with rain across his chin. She hesitated, memories of child laughter at Storm's End flickering. But he snarled like a cornered wolf, swinging again. She ducked, slashed upward. Steel bit into leather under his arm. He cried out, falling to one knee. Across the pit, Howland finally found his opening. Thoros, drunk on adrenaline and wine fumes, overextended in a fiery flourish. Howland's dragon glass dagger flashed black-red, kissing the priest's thigh just above the greave. Fire sputtered. Thoros stumbled, flames sputtering out as wet cloth smothered it. Blood blossomed, dark and thick. He swung again on reflex. Howland dodged, jabbed once more, and Thoros toppled, sword extinguishing in a hiss. The crowd gasped. One of Robert's champions lay incapacitated. Garland Tyrell's sheer prowess threatened Jorah. Each move of the Rose Knight was poetry. Yet poetry slips on mud. When Garland attempted a vaulting lunge meant for tourney sand, his foot slid. Jorah caught him midair, shoulder planting into Garland's chest, and both crashed into muck. Jorah rolled atop, elbow smashing helm, dazing the younger man. He pressed his blade to Garland's throat plate. Tyrell froze. 2 stags down. Lord Caron, seeing allies fall, redoubled his assault on Brienne. He rained blows like hail upon her shield, splinters flying. Brienne absorbed each strike, legs braced. At last she surged forward, shield edge driving Caron's weapon high, and thrust center mass. Her blade pierced mail, forced deep. Caron exhaled a wet gasp. Brienne yanked free, stepped back. Eyes widened in shock at what necessity demanded. Caron collapsed, cloak splaying in swirling water, life ebbing crimson. 3 stags down. Lonmouth, nerves fraying at tide's turn, struck at Derry with frantic power. The elder knight parried deftly, then riposted with precise cut to Lonmouth's sword arm. The blade flew free, clattering across stone. Derry placed his point to Lonmouth's chest. After a heartbeat, Lonmouth raised hands in surrender. 4. Robert sensed fortune slipping. With a howl, he swung an overhead blow meant to cleave Ned from clavicle to breastbone. Ned brought ice up two-handed, meeting the hammerhead. The jolt drove Ned to a knee. Valyrian steel shuddered but held, while the hammer's spike bent. Robert lashed a mailed fist into Ned's temple. Ned rolled with the punch, staggered away, vision blurred by rain and impact. He tasted blood. "Yield, Ned," Robert roared, voice cracking. "Stand down and live." Ned shook his head, hair plastered, eyes burning with tears and water. "Lyanna's choice is mine," Robert bellowed, charging. Ned pivoted low, sliding on mud. The hammer whistled overhead. Ned slashed, scoring Robert's thigh. Blood seeped through steel joints. Robert grunted, rage feeding strength. He swung side arc, catching Ned's shoulder. The force flung Ned into muck, breath knocked out. Ice skidded, point digging into earth. Lyanna saw her brother fall. Fear surged, wolf instinct to protect pack. She left Renly gasping on hands and knees and sprinted, boots slipping. Robert raised his hammer high above Ned's prone form. "Robert!" she screamed. He spun as she dove. Her sword caught his haft, arresting the downward arc. Sparks showered as they locked, face inches apart. Rainwater and sweat streaked his beard. Fury and heartbreak warred in his eyes. He shoved. She slid back, heels carving trenches. Ned seized the moment, clambered up, ice in hand once more. He flanked Robert, but made no strike. He placed the blade crosswise near Robert's back, poised. Robert sensed twin steel lines converging and froze, breath ragged. Every spectator held breath. Thunder rolled overhead like drums of judgment. "End this," Ned panted. 4 of your champions lie defeated. The gods have spoken. Memd and Nor. Robert's eyes darted across the pit. Caron unmoving. Thoros clutching thigh. Garland sprawled under Jorah's guard. Lonmouth disarmed. Renly struggling to stand. Only Stannis remained hale. Grim Sentinel watching from ringside, jaw clenched. But the rules forbade substitution mid-trial. Robert stood, effectively alone. Rainwater coursed down his nose, mingled with tears. He lowered the hammer slowly. Mud sucked at its head. Lyanna eased her blade away. Ned did likewise. Silence stretched. Then a voice broke it, high, trembling, from the noble stands. Cersei Lannister leaned forward, gown darkened by rain, golden hair plastered. "Do not yield," she cried. "They will never respect a king who bends." Her father Tywin's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Robert exhaled like a punctured bellows. He turned a half-step toward Cersei, toward lords who measured value in unflinching might. Then toward Lyanna, eyes pleading. "You would leave me. The realm needs a queen. The realm needs justice," she answered. "Let the witness decide." The High Septon stepped forward, water dripping from crystal staff. "By sacred right, should one side stand with 3 or more champions hail, while the other falls below 3, victory is proclaimed, except where mercy is chosen. 4 remain standing for Lady Lyanna, 2 at best for King Robert, thus judgment is rendered." Robert sagged. "Mercy," he murmured. I choose mercy. The High Septon raised his staff. So witnessed by gods and men. Lyanna Stark is freed of all claim of betrothal. Let no man, highborn or low, bind her against will. By the faith's decree, she walks unshackled. Men. Cheers erupted. Northerners roaring approval. Stormlanders stunned to quiet disbelief. Small folk shrieking delight at spectacle. Rain pounded louder than all. Robert looked to Ned. "Brother." His voice cracked. Ned rested ice tip in mud, extended a hand. "Rise. Your people still need you." Robert grasped forearm to forearm. Ned pulled him up. They embraced briefly, armor creaking. Lyanna watched sorrowfully, two boys who had loved. Now men whose love drew blood. Jorah helped Garland to his feet. Brienne offered Lord Caron's corpse a whispered prayer before turning away. Howland bound Thoros wound with reed twine from his pouch. Darry escorted Lonmouth from the pit, hand resting gentle on disgraced shoulder. Bells towered in King's Landing began to peal, echoing through streets like rolling thunder's kin. Rain eased to a mist. Clouds shredded, revealing bruised sky. Blood mixed with mud in swirling patterns. Red, brown, crimson dissolving into earth as though pit itself drank the day's fury. Lyanna sheathed her sword. For an instant, she knew peace. Wind across winter barley, laughter in Winterfell's yard. Then reality returned, heavy with consequence. She stepped toward Robert. "You have your throne," she said, voice soft. "Rule it well. Show them mercy not because defeat forced you, but because you comprehend its weight." Robert's shoulders slumped. "Without you, storms break ships," she answered. "But they also carve coasts. Endure." He met her gaze, nodded once. King's nod, weary and chastened. Stannis approached, face rigid but eyes glinting with reluctant respect. "Law is law," he said. "I expect decrees penned by nightfall, acknowledging verdict." Robert grunted assent. Stannis turned, cloak snapping. Lyanna gathered champions with a silent gesture. They followed She-Wolf from arena. Ned limping, Brian bearing broken shield, Jorah supporting Garland, Howland guiding Thoros hobble, Sir Willem steady but pale. Michael exhilarated yet battered. They left Robert knee-deep in mud, hammer slack, crownless still. A monarch born in triumph, tempered by loss. Outside the dragon pit, crowds flooded narrow lanes. Some reached to touch Lyanna's cloak as though hope might rub off. Children stared wide-eyed at Brienne. Sailors cheered Jorah. Smiths hailed Howland's unlikely victory. Bells tolled. Ravens launched. Rumors raced faster than hoofbeats. The wolf-maid defies the stag and wins. In the Tower of Maegor, Tywin Lannister paced. Each step measured probability. Robert's vulnerability, Stark influence, northern secession. Cersei stormed past, fury incandescent. "He should have crushed her," she hissed. "Even a king cannot balk at faith before all eyes," Tywin replied. "Yet weakness breeds flies. We shall see which swarm first." Ness. Night draped the capital in sodden velvet. Fires crackled within guest wing where Lyanna's companions gathered round long trestle table. Bowls of rabbit stew steamed. Flagons of ale passed. Torches cast flickering halos, illuminating exhaustion and relief in equal measure. Ned raised cup. "To justice." Sir Willem answered. "To mercy." Howland. "To free choice." Brienne's deep voice. "To Lady Lyanna Stark, who taught the realm a queen needs no crown to wield power." They drank. Lyanna smiled, warmth threading weary limbs. She touched Ned's forearm. "Tomorrow we ride north." Ned's eyes softened. "Mother and father will rejoice. Yet father is gone." His voice wavered. "We carry him home in spirit," she whispered. Jorah lifted brows. "Bear Island welcomes you as well, should you need harbor." "And Tarth," Brienne added, cheeks flushing. Michael bowed. "The Vale stands ally." Howland shrugged with grin. "Grey water moves where needed." Lyanna felt tears burn. "I thought today might end in tombs. Instead, I find family grown by 6 hearts." She inhaled, steadying. but road stretches long. War leaves wounds deep. We must stitch them. Ned leaned close. What of Robert? He will survive, she said softly. Men like him bend or break. Today he bent. May gods keep him from snapping. Thunder rumbled distant. Storms echo retreating towards sea. Outside, lanterns swung, casting golden coins of light across puddles. Somewhere, a bard plucked harpstrings, tentative melody weaving through night like mending thread. Lyanna rose. Rest, my friends. Dawn calls. They dispersed to cots and straw pallets. She alone climbed spiral stairs to rampart overlooking the Blackwater rush. City lights glittered on its surface. Driftwood bobbed like ghosts. She closed eyes, letting wind comb damp hair. Footsteps approached. Nend. He joined her, silent a moment. Do you regret the challenge? She thought of blood on rain-slick mud, of Robert's shattered hope, of champions who would bear scars. Regret? She traced droplets on stone. I feel burden, but regret belongs to choices that betray self. This did not. Ned nodded. Where will you go when Winterfell's hearth fire fades? I have no map. She smiled. Perhaps east, perhaps north to the wall. An adventure beckons. Nendoarn. He chuckled. Benjen will chase you. Let him. Wolves run best in packs. They stood until clouds parted, revealing pale shard of moon. Stars winked, cleansed by storm. Ned spoke at last. Father called you wild, feared you'd love a lightning bolt and follow where it struck. Maybe you did. Maybe I am the bolt, she said. They laughed. Soft, sad, free. Morning brought clear skies, cool breeze off Bay Diwananau. Stable hands saddled horses, provisions packed. Ravens released north with news. Robert met Lyanna in courtyard, shaded by a scorched weirwood transplanted from Dragonstone generations prior. He approached without retinue, plain leather jerkin in place of crown jewels. I came to say farewell. She inclined head. And I, farewell to you. He studied her as if imprinting memory. I will try, Lyanna. I know. If the realm suffers under my rule, write a letter. I will remember this day. Rule justly and no letter will arrive. He managed tired grin. Then may ink stay dry. She extended hand. Robert clasped it gently, antler-calloused palm enveloping hers. They released. Past sins, and might have beens drifted between like feathers, light, ungraspable. She mounted her palfrey. Ned swung astride his gray. Champions formed column. Brienne on destrier big as a hut, Jorah guiding Garland's borrowed mount until his wounds healed. Howland astride hardy marsh pony. Derry upon aged courser. Michael, bright-eyed despite bruises. Gate chains rattled. Portcullis rose. Beyond stretched King's Road, ribbon of promise. Hooves clopped on cobblestone, echoed by cheers of blacksmiths, bakers, beggars. Lyanna raised a hand in farewell. Sun kissed her mail and shone like dawn on new forged blade. As they rode, petals, crimson, white, and winter blue, whirled on breeze, cast by unseen hands atop walls. Some settled in Lyanna's braid, others in Ned's lap, some in mud ruts where soon cartwheels would grind them to pulp. But for a moment, they drifted free, the wind their only master. Far ahead, the road crested a hill where broken wheel of a wagon lay half buried. Past it. Horizon shimmered with heat, though air felt cool. Lyanna urged her horse, eager, heart drumming synchronous with hoofbeats. Each breath tasted of pine and possibility. She did not know what lay beyond next bend. Stranger-ridden inns, river fords swollen with meltwater, laughter with new friends, confrontations with old foes. She knew only that path was hers by right, earned at edge of steel and conviction. No man's claim, no crown's edict would steer her reins again. Behind, King's Landing receded, spire tips fading, dragon's bones sleeping once more under ruined dome. Storm's roar turned whisper. Bells told final note. And in that hush, Lyanna Stark rode into legend, a wolf maid, whose choice unshackled kingdoms, and whose name the wind would carry long after swords rusted to dust. No. Rain-washed miles slid beneath their horses' hooves, rhythm steady as heartbeats clenched in mud-spattered harness. The kings rode unspooled northward in wavering ribbons of slate and brown, edged by hedgerows gone wild, autumn thistle bursting purple amid gold grass. Lyanna rode at the column's head, eyes narrowed beneath the hood of a wolf-gray cloak whose wool still bore the faint musk of Winterfell's storerooms. Wind tugged at the braid that brushed her spine. She let it snap free, dark strands scattering like crows across the dawn. Ned kept easy pace beside her, his destriera's breath ghosting. Behind, Brienne towered in saddle, blue steel catching earliest sun, while Jorah and wounded Garland rode stirrup to stirrup, exchanging quiet counsel on blade angles and Tyrell harvests, as though the world were not sliding into yet another uncertainty. Ser Willem Darry dozed upright, white bearded chin resting upon his chest. Old bones rattled by victory's price, until Howland's marsh pony nickered a warning of potholes. Then Darry stirred, muttering apologies to no one and to every fallen comrade who haunted his dreams. Michael Redford, swathed in bandages that peeked from beneath his surcoat, hummed an eerie falconer's lullaby, the tune more fragile than the boy's new-won pride. The small folk flocked to roadside ditches to watch them pass. Some offered cracked mug ale or loaves blackened at crust. Others pressed sprigs of maiden's kiss or winterberry for luck. To most, Lyanna's face was rumor only, heroine, witch, she-wolf, maid gone mad. They peered, uncertain whether legend or mud like any traveler. She answered each greeting with the nod of an equal, and word bloomed in her wake. The lady of the pit bears no crown, yet queens the road. On the fifth evening, storm heat sagged heavy over the inn at the crossroads. Smoke curled from crooked chimneys, carrying scents of stewed hare and bittersweet onion. Shutters rattled. Lanterns painted warped rectangles of honey across pooling puddles. The proprietor, a round-hipped woman with a scar like a crescent moon beneath her eye, ushered them through the stable yard with clucks that might have soothed skittish mares or men alike. Benches groaned beneath damp cloaks. Firelight flickered along rafters hung with dried garlic. Shadows hopped from oaken beam to beam. A fiddler sawed soft reels near the hearth, while travelers nursed stoneware cups. In every corner, talk fell to hush as the companions entered. Lyanna's band made no grander proclamation than soaked boots and tired sighs. Yet when Brienne unbuckled gorget and Jorah's bare head sickle glimmered, wary eyes widened. Ale arrived, dark as night water. Trencher bread followed, trenches heavy with carrot, boar, and barley. Hunger loosened tongues. Jorah recounted the moment. Garland's foot had slipped, exaggerating only enough to paint the Tyro knight as storm-chased rather than incompetent. Garland responded with a grin shaded by wince when stitches pulled. Howland told of a neck-bog story. Will-o'-wisps that lured Andal raiders into peat pools, where armor sank like prayer stones. Ser Willem chuckled until coughing racked his ribs. Lyanna listened, half in the room, half beyond. Rain ticked glass panes. Steady as the heartbeats she imagined, still thudded upon dragon pit sand. Her thoughts wandered to Robert, whether wine or war counseled him tonight, whether Cersei sharpened words the way soldiers whet daggers. She pictured Jon Arryn's weary patience spanning cracks in counsel like a mortar doomed to crumble. She saw Stannis pacing stone floors, counting traitors in grains of sand. And Tywin weighed kingdoms on scales of legacy, ready to tip iron plates with gold. "Too quiet for victory," Ned murmured beside her, breaking reverie. "Victory is seldom quiet in my head," she replied. He leaned elbows upon scarred table, palms cradling pewter cup. "You remember Brandon and father. Every mile north feels like a story they once told. Brandon boasted of racing barefoot down King's Road to Winterfell if only mother would let him." She smiled. Then the smile fled. "He never raced it." Ned's lashes glistened. "We ride for him now. For father, for mother's memory." A door rasped open. Wind gusted. 4 riders stepped into threshold silhouettes. Their cloaks were done, travel-stained. Belts bore short swords plain yet honed. Eyes scanned room until settling upon Lyanna's company. The inn quieted further, but the fiddler, oblivious, slid into a mournful tune whose notes quivered like spider silk. Yora's hand slipped to pommel. Brienne's broad shoulders stilled. Even fire seemed to dim, drawing its roar close as a held breath. The lead rider pushed back hood. A woman, freckles stark against cheeks burned by sun and frost alike. Copper hair tied with deer bone pins. She raised gloved hands, palms open. Peace. We seek only word. Lyanna regarded her. Whose word? Yours, my lady. The road north whispers of freedom paid in mud and blood beneath ruined dome. She stepped forward. Lamplight revealed breastplate, etched with a mailed fist clenching broken manacles. We are sisters anointed of the free daughters. Our vows bid us protect women's right of choice. We wish to walk your path south to north, spreading news. Damda benchi. Lyanna motioned to a vacant bench. Eat with us. Share what you know. Learn what we fear. Cautiously, strangers joined. Names given: Maeve of Maidenpool, Tansa of Tarth. Not Brienne's kin but Isleborn still. Oriel from Duskendale, Vi from the Marches. They carried tales of septas beaten for teaching girls to read. Of lords who traded daughters like coin. The free daughters, small yet swelling, vowed to guard any woman who refused forced marriage. Lyanna listened, anger simmering though she masked it behind cool nods. Over second cups, Maeve spoke lower. Golden lions stalk your heels. 5 days passed, we passed, Sir Amory Lorsch outriders at Sow's Horn. They wore no sigils but their accent is west. Their captain a man who chews cloves. They asked after a northern maid and 6 companions. One a lady knight. Brienne bristled. Ned muttered oath in old tongue. How many? Jorah asked. 2 score, mounted, with a cage cart. Lyanna's grip tightened on Mug. Tywin moved swiftly. Sir Willem's eyes held sudden clarity. A lion might claim you a traitor who abducted Ned Stark from King's service. A pretext to seize. How far behind? Ned demanded. 2 days if they push. On our heels. Lyanna rose. We ride at dawn before first crow. Rest what hours remain. Companions dispersed to bedrolls. Ned remained, tempering parchment at candle with quill scratch. He penned missive to Lord Hoster Tully. Warning of Westermen beyond Golden Tooth. Plea for riverlords to close fords. He folded wax with direwolf's seal pressed from Camp Signet Jory Castle had gifted him years prior. Howland will see it flown by a raven come first light, he told Lyanna. She nodded, yet worry gnawed. I would not bring war down the King's Road where small folk already starve. Ned's stare held bleak certainty. War follows crowns. You merely tore curtain that hid it. At cockcrow the company saddled. Innkeep refused coin. Instead she pressed knit gloves into Lyanna's hands. Gray wool embroidered with tiny crimson blossoms. My girl Rose was taken by knights of the Trident 3 winters back. If she'd met you first, she'd sit by my hearth, still. Lyanna murmured thanks. She tucked gloves at belt and led column into morning fog. They rode hard. Hoofbeats drummed across stone spans of Maiden's Ford. Across moss-slick planks bridging the tumblestone. Through villages where smoke rose from hearths. Though doors remained barred, residents fearful of new rumors. Rebel queens, Royan raids, lion raids. At midday, as they forded a shallow creek, a shaggy hound bounded from bramble, barking, and my shell nearly toppled before regaining seat. Laughter eased tension briefly. Yet by dusk of the second day, Maeve's prediction proved true. A scout's whistle, 2 short, 1 back, pierced woods. Brienne drew rein. Through skeletal birch limbs, they glimpsed dust-plume columns behind. Sun dipped, staining sky wine dark. They turned east off-road along a hunter's trail twisting through black pines. Hooves sank soft needles, branches slapped mantles, ravens croaked overhead. Jorah rode rear guard, gray eyes scanning gloom. Night fell moonless. They made camp in hollow surrounded by holly bushes weighted with blood-red berries. Fires were forbidden. Bread and salted venison passed hand to hand. Howland mixed bog moss with ash, smearing on armor to dull shine. Brienne reluctantly dabbed visor. Jorah painted bear crest a shadow. Even Lyanna blackened silver buckle at throat. Wind shifted, carrying faint whinny. Enemy mounts. Ned gestured, quiescence. Hours crawled. Distant clank of bridles echoed, then faded. Only cicada hum and flicker of stars remained. Come morning, they pressed deeper east, away from main road. Terrain grew rough, climbed steeper. Garland's stitches bled. Willem coughed crimson flecks. Lyanna urged halt on rocky shelf over valley, where pale mists pooled. Sir Willem beckoned her aside. My wound turned sour. I smell it. She knelt, peeled back linen, bruise purple, rim livid. She bit lip. We must seek Maester. There is none this side of River Run now that war simmers. His hand gripped hers. Leave me weapon. If lions near, old Derry will take 2 more to grave. Tears pricked. I will not abandon you. Then you doom us both. I have walked 40 years beyond my worth. Fetch promise that my squires keep Summerhall lands from Lannister's greed. You have it. She brushed hair from his brow. He breathed easier. By twilight his breaths rattled sparrow dry. Lyanna sat sentinel. When moon crested, Derry's eyes opened once more. He smiled at unseen visages. Perhaps Rhaegar, perhaps young Willem galloping in tourney lists. He whispered, prayer to 7, and to old gods for good measure. He died with fingers woven in hers. At dawn they buried him in cairn of river stones beneath yew sprouting twist angled from cliff face. Brienne carved lily upon bark. Howland murmured green songs. Ned spoke, voice fractured. He taught me to lance when King's Landing still smelled of roses. May the stranger guide him gently. Dannon. They left before sun fully burned vapors from valley floor. In death, Derry delayed them, but his sacrifice saved them one less wounded hinderer. Still, doom pressed behind. On 4th day since leaving road, they reached Ruby's Ford. River Trident glittered ruddy in setting sun. Current swift over gravel bars where legend claimed Rhaegar's rubies scattered. Lyanna dismounted, boots crunching. She knelt, lifted water in cupped palms. Cold bit skin, memory bit deeper. Vision of silver prince falling, songs drowned by warhammer crash. Tears mingled with river. Ned lay hand on her shoulder. You need not face ghosts alone. They walk whichever bank I tread. She inhaled. I will meet them as living woman, not wraith. Splash of oars across swift water interrupted. Across ford, standard of a leaping trout emerged. Hoster Tully's patrol. Spear points glinted. Voices hailed. Who rides in river mist? Ned stepped forward. Cloak parted to reveal Stark Direwolf. Eddard Stark, son of River Run's daughter, with companions bound for Winterfell. We seek crossing. Then, Lord Hoster sent ferries to meet you. Rowboats slid from reeds. Relief eased tension, but still Ned scanned wooded bank, expecting arrows hiss. Within hour, all sat upon River Run's guest quay, where Lord Hoster, thin now yet eyes twinkling like young trout, greeted them. Rivermen whisked Garland to sept for stitches renewed. Hoster commanded Master to brew salve for all wounds. He grasped Lyanna's hands. Child of winter, you shook crowns. My halls are yours. Lyanna thanked him, yet news he bore chilled blood. Sir Gregor Clegane torches villages along Blackwater Rush. Amory Lorch rides north of River Road, claiming search for traitors but stealing grain. Tywin denies sanction but does nothing. Nepsim Panner. Ned cursed softly. A lion hunts more than grain. He hunts provocation. Hoster nodded. Riverlords chafe. Edmure would call banners tomorrow if I allowed. Lyanna met Ned's gaze. We must outrun storm or risk north drawn into bloodshed before we reach walls of Winterfell. Hoster pressed sealed scroll into Ned's palm. I wrote to your bannerman, Moat Kaelin Rady's gates. Yet whispers says Roose Bolton Court's Casterly Rocks coin. Ned's mouth tightened. I will answer Roose personally. They tarried 2 nights. Maester applied mold poultice to Derry's cairnborn fever in Jorah's shoulder. Garland regained color. Brienne oversaw shoeing. At dawn the third day, they crossed Red Fork and turned north along rougher trail, bypassing lords who might host spies. Riverlands gave way to high heaths where purple heather rippled like dragon scales. Twice they sighted riders behind. Once at distant ridge, once across marsh flats where sky mirrored in water so perfectly they could not tell horse from ghost. Each time they pressed harder. When first frost silvered leaves, they reached the neck. Mists coiled thick. Earth sucked at hooves. Frogs chirred. Unseen things splashed. Howland Reed smiled through damp lashes. My home wards us. Follow reeds, not firm land, you may sink. He guided them along causeways cunningly hidden. Cattail brown heads brushed thighs. Willows bowed. At dusk, twin shapes emerged from fog. A girl lithe as cattail, spear taller than herself. A boy pale and solemn, eyes dreaming wide. Father, they chimed. Mira and Jojen. Reunion brief. Danger chased. Howland's children led them to Greywater Camp, drifting on barges bound by ropes of braided grass. Fires glowed blue-green. Their light filtered through canvas oiled with frog spit. Wise women tended Jorah's wound with paste of snail shell and moon moss. Pain fled like tide. While company rested, Lyanna conversed with Jojen, whose prophetic dreams shivered her spine. You ride against storm's second swell, he told her. A lion's roar echoes in halls of false peace. North must stand or fall to rifts within. Know you which rift? She asked. The flayed man seeks fleece in wolf skin. Beware pale eyes in dim corridors. Mepirshaw, that warning lodged like splinter. On seventh morning after River Run, barges drifted north to Causeway where ancient watchtower jutted. Benjen Stark waited there with 200 riders. Karstarks, Glovers, tall hearts. Joyous cries mingled with wolf howls. He clasped Lyanna's waist, lifted her from saddle and whirl like childhood games. You outran rumor itself. Her laughter rang, first unburdened tone since Tower of Harrenhal. She surveyed faces. Men and women hard-eyed yet hopeful. We ride for Winterfell at dawn, she proclaimed. But first we must treat with Moat Cailin. Stone columns of that fortress rose next midday. Moss-clad giants straddling Causeway. Flags of the flayed man snapped. Roose Bolton appeared upon parapet, pale as moon, flanked by armored men whose sigils had been ripped free. He hailed them with civility, smooth as fresh blood. Lord Stark, Lady Lyanna, welcome. Ned's jaw set. Open gates. Roose smiled. I will, when we settle small matter. He gestured. Columns of Lannister red cloaks emerged behind cut-stone merlons. Guests bound for the Dreadfort. Lions pay well for fur. Yanam? Benjen muttered curse. Karstarks brandished spears. Lyanna rode forward alone. She swept hood back, pouring all ice and wind of winter into gaze. Flay one more wolf. And you answer, snow. Roose tipped head, voice soft. Threats sully beauty's tongue. She unclasped gloves innkeeper had given, pulled them on. Red blossoms bloomed over gray. These flowers grew from pain of mothers whose daughters you'd cage. Step aside or feed my garden. Silence stretched. Mira Reed notched arrow. Frog spit tipped. Brienne drew sword. Its scrape thundered. Bolton weighed odds. Lannister support light. Northmen countless scrabble. Neckbog men slither unseen. And there was legend. The wolf maid who humbled a king. He lifted hand. Banners lowered. Portcullis groaned. Lannister captain hissed protest. Roose's pale eyes flicked, and the man quieted. Column passed through arches draped with tattered rope of skins long cured. Inside ward, Bolton's men lined walls, glares brittle, but none hindered northward march. Beyond Moat Cailin, air felt crisper, scents of pine and peat mingling. Fields dotted with sheep, wrapped in morning mist, stretched. Ravens croaked overhead, welcoming kin. 3 days' ride carried them under Winterfell's towers. Smoke curled from great hall chimneys. Dire wolf banners billowed. Caitlin Tully Stark descended steps, red hair glinting. Sons Rob and John hurdled courtyard, Bran toddling behind on shaky legs. Old Maester Lewin wiped spectacles, tears shining. Lyanna dismounted. Caitlin embraced her, though awe warred with caution. "Sister," she whispered, "you come home clothed in story." "Home," Lyanna echoed, breath hitching. Kids circled, peppering Benjen and Ned with questions of war and dragons. Brienne knelt to Rob's wonder. Jorah ruffled Joan's hair. Garland presented Bran a carved rose shield, no larger than pie dish. Feast followed in great hall. Mead flowed, tables groaned under roast elk, honeyed root, wisteria-glazed trout. Bards sang ballad newly coined of the dragon pit trial, verses rough but hearts full. Yet political fires smoldered beneath merriment. In council chamber later, bannermen gathered. Lord Rickard Karstark, tall and severe. Lady Mage Mormont, grisly-hearted. Galbart Glover, Marshdain still on boots. Young Theon Greyjoy, ward and balance for his father's submission. They listened as Ned recounted lion raids, Bolton treachery, threat of Crown's weakness. Debate raged, remain loyal to Robert or seek northern independence. Lyanna watched silently until voices grew shrill. She rose, cloak falling silent. All hushed. "I claimed freedom for myself in pit of broken dragons. Not for rebellion, but for right to choose. Now North faces choice. We may cling to throne, whose ruler bends yet is bound by counsels of wolves and lions alike. Or we may shape destiny, swearing fealty first to each other, not to coin or distant crowns." "Done?" Karstark slammed fist. "King in the North." Others echoed. Ned lifted hand. "Robert is still my friend. He granted mercy." Lyanna met his eyes. "But mercy can rot in halls where council poisons. If Robert cannot curb Tywin, North will bleed regardless." Maester Lewin cleared throat. "A great council could ask Robert to check his lord paramounts." Brienne spoke then, surprising all. "Justice that begs permission starves. Justice seized feeds." Silence fell. Caitlin broke it softly. "What of Riverlands? My father faces war first if North secedes." Lyanna stepped to her, clasped hands. "I will ride to River Run with champions. We will broker alliance, North and River as once they were, tied by blood and honor." Caitlin's eyes glistened. "If Riverlords consent, I stand behind my husband." Debate resumed less heated, shaping plan. Ravens to be sent, envoys dispatched, musters readied only for defense. Ned insisted on letter to Robert urging removal of Lannister outriders and censure of Tywin's incursions. Lyanna agreed, knowing Tywin would treat censure as nettle, but letter preserved last thread. Snow fell first time that season as she sealed letters. Flakes drifted gentle, dusting courtyard cobbles white. Children shrieked delight. Bran tried catch on tongue. From ramparts, Lyanna watched. Ned joined, cloak flapping. Below, Jojen Reed spoke quietly with Jon Snow. Mira sparred Arya under Brienne's guidance. Jorah trained Robb in shield crunch. Garland Tyrell leaned on crutch, laughing with Sansa, who asked endless questions of high garden flowers. "Hope," Ned murmured. "Looks like children playing war they need not fight." "Let us keep it that way," she said. Yet far south, in Red Keep's solar, raven wings battered shutters. Robert read Ned's letter, knuckles blanching. Grand Maester Pycelle droned counsel. Varys flitted in shadows. Cersei slipped poison of doubt. Tywin, receiving word of Moat Caelin's defiance, tapped map. Dreadfort, twins, Moat, calculating choke. War drums trembled, faint but gathering. Lyanna dreamed that night of weirwood roots entwining iron throne. Splitting iron. Leaves sprouting from rust. She woke before dawn, heart thunderous. She rose, padded through silent corridors to Godswood, where hot springs steamed beneath snow-dusted branches. White trees' face regarded her, red sap tears frozen. She knelt, blade across knees. "I am no queen," she whispered. "Only wind that found a voice. Guide it true." "You mistall." Wind answered, rustling leaves though air still. Somewhere Wolf howled. Lyanna stood, and beneath dawn's first silver, she began script for journey south again. To rally Riverlands, to parley with Stormlord. Perhaps to walk halls of Dragonstone, where whispers said a boy named Stannis sharpened justice colder than winter fell. The saga stretched ahead. Lions and wolves, roses and krakens, daughters unbound, lords unmasked, songs forged of steel and snow. But along its winding stave, one clear note now rang eternal. Freedom struck upon mud and rain beneath broken dragon's bones, echoing from Southron pit to northern wall, promising no crown unchallenged, no chain untested, while Lyanna Stark rode at its heart, living thunder, still gathering storm.